Hi, this is Les Posen, beginning of May 2020. Some 2 months into lockdown and something like 2 months since I saw my last patient face-to-face. Everything's happening via telehealth. Something I'll remind you that I've been doing for something like 10 years, both within Australia and overseas, in Dubai, in the United States and other places, to Singapore. And so it's important to acknowledge these technical changes that allow us to do the sort of things that we're doing nowadays, provide assistance to people and guidance, and also to continue their therapy work, which we may have started face-to-face. I want to speak to you who are my YouTube followers and ask how you're doing, check in with you, and ask if you're suffering any kind of Zoom fatigue, as it's called. Those of you who are working from home and calling in using Zoom perhaps for the first time, it might not be Zoom, it could be Microsoft Teams, it could be Skype. Google has just announced that its meetings are going to go free rather than paid versions, so look forward to that. That's going to happen sometime this month. Zoom, by the way, has started off at one of the lowest levels of government and agency approval because of safety issues, and it's now kind of flipping things around so that it's going to become one of the safest ones. I predicted this some time back because of the shock to the system. And not long ago, on a webinar for psychologists discussing which video conferencing facilities meet particular standards, our Victorian Department of Health is very much a Microsoft Teams group, so when it was advising general practitioners, it put Microsoft Teams up highest for safety and Zoom lowest, and in between were the other ones like Skype and whatever else. Interesting enough, my assertion is this, that if you want to see ease of use, you flip that chart on its head, and Zoom becomes number one and Microsoft Teams goes right down below. I think Zoom will catch up, and in fact we've now moved from Zoom 4.6 and it made a big leap to version 5, and in the future, come late May, only version 5 will be suitable. That's because they want everybody to be using certain encryption methods which they've advocated for. They're no longer routing through information through China, which was a big bugbear for many organizations. And in addition, while you still get a personal meeting room, by default it's going to be a random meeting room assignment, probably with an embedded password, to prevent what's called Zoom bombing, people just using your consistent Zoom address and just jumping right in. Not good. Let's just imagine a naive patient says, I think I might contact Les, here's the personal room that we used the last time, and then jumps in and that we're in a session. So the task is, with Zoom at least, to leave your, if you're hosting the meeting, make sure you have a waiting room, make sure you don't allow people to enter the conversation before you enter the conversation, and also that you learn how to lock a meeting once it's started. These are various little things. Come back to me if you need to know more about it. Write something in the comments and I'll share that with you. But I do want to talk mainly about Zoom fatigue. That is, doing lots of these sort of conversations, whether they be webinars or one-on-ones, or whether you're at work. And why is it so tiring? So for everybody, I want to suggest a couple of things. Number one, if you regularly schedule an hour of session with your therapist, if you're the therapist scheduling an hour session with your patient, may I suggest you only work for about 45 minutes tops. Use a couple of minutes at the beginning just to see how people are traveling, maybe do some assessments, maybe just general chit-chat, because there is a kind of an almost unspoken obligation to get the work started straight away. Unlike other situations where you let somebody in, or you greet them in the waiting room and you have a few moments, hi, how are you, as you walk to the room, and then people settle down and you settle down and you open up your notes. Whatever. The expectation is that you dive straight in. So we've got to kind of move around from that and just enjoy a little bit of chit-chat. It may just be talking about the quality of the call. How am I coming through? Can you hear me? Oh, I can't really see you very well. Can you put some light on there or make some adjustments? I want you to notice too that when you're in screen doing this sort of work, this is about the bare minimum as I'm standing now. Probably, I'm actually working at a standing desk. Probably you want to be something like this, where if you do use your hands, that they're quite visible. Be careful of being like this, where it's just a face, because it's a little intimidating and overwhelming, and it's just not what we want to do. So we want to be here. I have some lights overhead, but I also have a light in front of me, which is give me some more natural light, as you can see. The last thing you want to do is be looking down on someone, or being looking up like this and be in darkness, or just one side lit and the other side lit. The other way to get around the business of Zoom fatigue is be careful of sitting down all day doing these conversations. I actually have a standing desk. It's always been here, and every so often I've been using it, but now for the last month I'm only using my standing desk. In fact, I'm using my chair as the support for my camera. So I'm going to transfer and I'll show you what this looks like. Hello. So this is me at my standing desk. Here's the standing desk here. You can raise it up on the side here and lift it up or lower it down. As it lifts up, it actually comes out a little bit to you. So you can see the edge here is actually forward of the main desk. So it goes back and it lifts up and forward. So this is where I am. You can also see I'm using two screens, one very big screen here. It's very wide. It's about, well, if I measure it this way, here, and I move my hands this, so you can see how wide it is. It's a wide, so you could actually put 3 A4 or Word documents or PDFs side by side. Having this much real estate means you're not mousing around and moving things around too much. Things just fall easy to sight, okay? And there's also, of course, my MacBook down here, which is a MacBook 16. It's got a very large screen. So my calendar, things that I don't need to use very often, sits down there. It's a little like being in the flight deck of a modern aircraft, where the things you're going to use all the time are sitting right in front of you, so you can just quickly glance down. The things you may only use once or twice, 3 times in the aircraft, you know, at the start, in the middle, and at the end of the flight, in the overhead here, is out of sight. Okay, but you can look up and reach for it, but you only need to do it once. But anything you need to use frequently is here, right in front of you. So anything I don't need to use very frequently, like my calendar, is down here. Okay, so that's how this works. There is a blue snowball microphone, external microphone. My camera, as you can see, the main camera, when I'm facing you, is over here. Okay, so if I switch back to my other camera, you can see this is what it looks like. Hello, so I'm back with you. Now, Zoom fatigue. Let me mention one little thing with this. When we're using video conferencing, as sharp as it can be and as without any delays, so you've got a really good connection both ways, nonetheless there's still some missing elements which your brain has to kind of fill in at a less than conscious level. In other words, it has to ramp up a few percentage points in terms of energy to be able to fill in the gaps. You have to understand that how our brains work. Our brains are data collectors, and from data collection, it makes patterns. Patterns means assumptions. It joins the dots up, like those colouring books we have 55, 56, 50, and then eventually you see the outline, those sort of books. So our brains are doing that all the time. We're data collectors, and we have main senses which sense the external world: eyes, ears, taste, touch, what our skin's doing, and of course smell. These are our main senses, and the order of priority, of course, is sight, and then hearing, and then smell, taste, touch. Yeah. In the world of dogs, my hairy friend is just down there. I don't know. Let me see if I can. No, Scout. He's just sitting down there. Good boy on his bed. He is. Some of you who are visitors to my channel will have seen him on frequent occasions. Let's come back to me. Their order of priorities is different than ours. It's smell first, then hearing, and sight comes third. Anyway, we have external collectors of data from what's going on in the world outside, and we have literally 100,000 internal sensors measuring all sorts of internal things, most of which we are unaware of until they go out of parameter. And even when they go out of parameter, we may not notice it. So when my sugars began to go up very high, I didn't notice it directly, but I did notice it because I got a little bit more thirsty than normal, and I dried out. So I went to see my doctor and he said, yes, your sugars are out through the roof. So not always do we get our senses giving us accurate data. Sometimes we can confuse the sensory information. So this is where health anxiety comes in. Oh, what was that? My heart's beating too fast. Sometimes we confuse that with being anxious. Sometimes we confuse anxious with having a heart situation. So our task through life, I think, is to get much more accurate with our reading of our own sensations. We might call that emotional regulation, if you like. Anyway, let's come back to Zoom. Our brains are constantly deciphering what's going on around us and what's going on inside us. It makes automatic adjustments to a lot of those things which are happening inside of us that are outside of our awareness, just automatic stuff like temperature regulation and so forth. Other times, we become very aware of what's going on and we have to take action so that we're not eaten. Primary defensive mechanism. What was that? In order not to be someone's lunch. So we have a lot of automatic reactions in order not to become someone's lunch. Okay, now, because we are connecting the dots all the time, we are also making inferences from what those dots mean. Is that a straight line? Is it a line that goes up this way or that way? Is there a direct connection between A and B? Straight line, A causes B. Or in fact, here's A, here's B, but there's C up here, and C is causing both A and B. Okay? This is what you learn in Psych 101. The difference between correlation, these two things seem to happen at the same time, versus causation, this causes that. Okay, this causes that. A causes B rather than C causes both A and B. And if you don't know where you're looking, you think that A causes B. It's one of the first things you learn in Psych 101. So we are inference-making creatures. We make connections. And when there are missing connections, our brains tend to fill in the gaps. So with Zoom, there are many missed connections, many dots that are missing because the person that we're talking with is not right in front of us. So we have a facsimile of that person, but they're not the real person in front of us. So our brains are constantly kind of guessing what's going on. So if your picture lacks depth, if it lacks clarity, if it lacks lighting, your brain is leaping in, trying to work out what's going on here. And it's happening under the hood, but in the long term, over the course of a day, it's tiring. You are exhausted. Now, I learned this a long time ago, about 5 years ago, actually more, about 5 years ago, after several conferences where I was a speaker, and also several cruises that I was taking when I was a speaker and being asked questions, and I couldn't decipher what the question was. There seemed to be a gap where the words just went blah, blah, all together. So I got my hearing tested, and the feedback came that when I looked at the lines of accuracy, what could I hear and what not hear, there was this huge gap where the line just went whoop, which meant loss of acuity, and then went back up again to higher frequencies. And the frequencies that suffered the most were the speaking frequencies, voice frequencies. And so the words just ran together. And so often I had to ask people, can you say that again? And I made mistakes inferring what they were saying. I was missing important parts. So when I got some hearing aids, and they were measured just to me, they're of course very good ones because they hook up to your phone and they measure, they're Bluetooth, and so you can play around with them, do all sorts of interesting things. And they're quite invisible. You probably can't see that I'm even wearing them, but I am. They're sitting there. I actually use them when I'm going for a walk with the dog, with Scout, and I listen to my podcast through them as well because they talk to the phone. So rather than having the white bud sticking out, I just use my podcasts. I just use my hearing aids. One of the first things I noticed when I started to use them on a regular basis was that not just was my acuity improved, I could actually hear birds singing and all sorts of things. Sometimes I had to turn them down because it was just so new. But also I was not as tired as I used to be. My sleep improved. And when I spoke to my clinical audiologist about this a few weeks after I got my hearing aids, and I went back to have another little check-in to see how I was doing, she explained that it was a very common phenomenon for sleep and energy levels to improve. And the reason was you weren't working so hard during the day trying to tune in to what people were saying. The hearing aids were helping you to hear the words more distinctly. You weren't having to fill in the gaps by your brain kind of guessing. Well, I think that's what's going on with Zoom. So it's not just that we're sitting down all the time, or we're just anxious and worried about the times we're in, but just the very act that we can't see people in the same way we can face to face when you spend several sessions during the day doing Zoom calls is just tiring, especially if there are multiple people and they're all talking all over each other. I'm actually more referring to one-on-one, which is the way I'm working at the moment, one-on-one using Zoom Pro. It's tiring work. So because of that, I don't schedule people back to back where I possibly can. I put at least half an hour in between and go for a walk. Now, one of the other things I'm doing to improve my energy levels is not just my standing desk. Let me show you that one more time so you can see what I'm doing here. So I'm not just using the standing desk here, but I'm also doing a little bit more exercise. Not just am I walking every day, in the morning. I walk 3 times a day because of Scout, but I'm also doing some special exercise. And so I discovered, because I have an Oculus Quest, a head-mounted display, which I've been using in my clinical work, which of course has to now sit and wait until we're safe to be less than 1.5 meters away. So that work has gone to one side now. But the Quest has all sorts of interesting other apps on it. And one of the apps that is new, it just started off, is called Supernatural. And it's, if you know anything about these games, it's a bit like Beat Saber in principle. But it's not a game, it's more about fitness. So let me show you a little bit. This is a little bit from the trailer that Oculus used, or Oculus Quest plus Supernatural used to introduce the game. Now I'm going to show you what I look like in my back here, moving around like an idiot. Show you the results because I pair it up. You can pair it up to your Apple Watch if you have one, so you get heart rate. It will pair up by Bluetooth to the Oculus Quest. Would you believe? It actually pairs up to the phone, to the app on the phone, which then talks to the Quest. Or you can use something else, which is like a Fitbit, but it's actually called a Whoop. And let me get that a bit closer to you so you can see. There we go, Whoop. Okay, and all it does, it's a one-trick pony. All it does is measure heart rate. The Apple Watch, of course, has to do a lot more than measure heart rate. So I have to charge this every night. This can be charged every 5 days, completely waterproof as well. So it's got much greater longevity, but also you can use it at night to sleep. You sleep with it on, and it measures sleep and recovery and exertion. So that's what these bits of data are around. The rumor goes that the Apple Watch, in its next iteration, which is going to be version 6 later this year, will have several improvements. There's a rumor that it will measure oxygen consumption by measuring color of the blood, and it may also measure changes in heart rate, which also measure anxiety levels, so using the heart rate variability stuff. So Apple's moving more towards that side of health, and the Whoop is more moving towards the fitness health side of things. Anyway, so that's what I'm doing every morning, 9 o'clock and 9:30. I do my half-hour workout, and it's a real workout. My resting heart rate is around 56, 57, and today it got up to 160. The workout was really hard. My shoulders were quite burning. Anyway, I want to stay in touch with you. That's what as much as I want to say today. We will return to more fear of flying stuff down the track, because I don't want you to lose sight of the fact that we can still keep working on our fears. Claustrophobia, heights, turbulence, loss of control, that doesn't go away. In fact, you may have a bit of a rest from all that worry because you're not having to fly for business or for pleasure, but the time will come that we're going to have to tackle it again. So if you have any questions, any subject you want me to tackle, I'll do some more videos soon. Please let me know, and I will give my attention to it. So have a great next few days. I think I can say that maybe in about 2 weeks Australia will come off its level of restrictions, and we'll be able to gather more people together, maybe up to 10 in one place, still maintaining social distance. By the way, those countries that seem to come out of their as a nation, their lockdown earlier are the countries that started earlier and went really hard. New Zealand, Australia, Ireland. Those nations that had an all over the place response, different states to different things. They've got porous borders so people can come in and come out. And they've got governments that don't have a particularly scientific endeavour. It's all done by faith. They will suffer the most losses, and they will also have a virus situation that will continue for years rather than months. And I don't have to go into more detail, you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, take care of yourselves, and we'll speak again soon. Bye for now.